A rocket will never be able to leave the Earth's atmosphere. The New York Times, 1936.
Of course, this headline never discouraged Wernher von Braun, who was considered one of the most significant rocket scientists of his era. He had created the ballistic missile, later known as the V-2, within the rocket program undertaken by the Third Reich, thus establishing the basis for astronautics. In 1945, his team of Nazi engineers surrendered to the Americans, providing them with 50 trunks of blueprints and research materials, as well as with the edge in missile development. However, Soviet engineers were not resting on their laurels either. Secret missile development was full on east of the Iron Curtain as well. The world was not prepared at all for the unexpected news when it was announced without any previous leaks that the Russians had successfully reached space. The 4th of October, 1957 became a day to highlight in history books, as it was the day when mankind began to conquer space. The artificial satellite Sputnik, weighing slightly more than 80 kilograms, was launched into Earth's orbit. Amateur radio enthusiasts and engineers will always remember the signal that Sputnik 1 sent back to Earth. It was a huge win for the Soviet Union over the US, and America simply had to respond. And thus was born one of the main accelerating factors in the Cold War, the open space race. Research and development went on at an incredible pace in the US. In 1958, multiple rockets were launched, but they all failed. The first American artificial satellite, called Explorer 1, served political rather than scientific purposes. Meanwhile, the Soviet Union created new chapters in history with every satellite it launched. Then, the second spacecraft to be launched, Sputnik 2, carried the first living animal into space, a dog named Laika. According to official Soviet press releases at the time, they were not able to bring the spacecraft safely back to Earth. So after 7 days, the animal was euthanized. Instead of dogs, Americans used monkeys to test the reactions of living organisms in space. However, the American public was still displeased at repeatedly coming in second. In 1960, the Soviet Union performed its first ever space journey, in which 2 subjects, dogs named Belka and Strelka, were successfully brought back. Strelka even went on to have puppies. As a nice Cold War gesture, one of the space dogs was later presented as a gift to US President John F. Kennedy. The 2 furry creatures are still national heroes. They can be seen in preserved form in a Russian museum. US military officials knew perfectly well that they could only satisfy the frustrated and angry American public and, at the same time, strike back at the Soviets if they successfully sent the first man into space. But they missed that by 3 weeks. With Yuri Gagarin's mission, the Soviet Union yet again achieved a first in sending the first human into space.